Elon Musk stands on stage and tells us that in 10 or 20 years, work will be optional and money will be irrelevant. Robots will cook and clean, patrol our streets, follow ex-prisoners around instead of locking them in jail, and AI will manage the rest. We'll tend our gardens, play sport, write novels, or do nothing much at all, while machines quietly take care of the boring bits of human existence. It sounds intoxicating. It is also at heart a very old temptation. Before we weigh it theologically, we should notice some simple, practical problems. You can automate tasks, but you cannot automate politics. You can train a robot to flip burgers, stack shelves, or even drive a car. You cannot train a robot to decide how tax is raised, how wealth is shared, or who gets a say in the common good. And if you think ChatGPT can do that, then you're wrong. Technology can increase productivity. It doesn't decide who benefits from that productivity. That choice sits with human beings, and particularly with those who own the technology. So Musk talks as if efficiency automatically turns into equality. It doesn't. It turns into control. If robots and AI systems generate almost all value, the basic question becomes obvious. Who owns the robots, the data centers, the code and the energy that keeps them running? Without a radical change in property and taxation, a world of robot workers doesn't remove inequality, it multiplies it. You risk a tiny class of owners who never have to work at all, and a much larger class of people whose labour is constantly marginal, constantly precarious, and always under surveillance. There is a further problem in the moral record of the prophet. The same man who saw talks about eliminating poverty with robots has now benefited, has celebrated benefit cuts and spoken about the homeless in terms that border on contempt. We are asked to believe that this particular billionaire, having helped to concentrate wealth in an astonishing scale, will then cheerfully redistribute it so that everyone can take up gardening as a hobby. That is not economics, that is fantasy. And that is some sort of patronizing indulgence. So even before we come to faith or philosophy, work will be optional for everyone already looks suspiciously like work will be optional for people like me, and more fragile than ever for everyone else, all of you. Now, what does religion have to say about a claim like this? What would the church have to say? Well, recent papal reflections on AI have already made a sharp distinction. Artificial intelligence is powerful. It can do extraordinary things. But whatever the sophistication, it remains derivative. It imitates, it recombines patterns it has been given. It predicts. It doesn't originate in any way, the way that a person does. When the Pope insists that AI cannot replace humanity, he's not merely comforting anxious workers, he's reminding us what a human being is. AI is just a Frankenstein's monster. Somebody will be responsible for that, and that monster will be looking to that person as their deity. And rather like Frankenstein's monster, the AI cannot die. We are not just problem-solving devices in need of an upgrade. We are persons who can enter a covenant, not just a contract. We are moral agents who can be praised or blamed. We are, in religious language, made in the image and likeness of the divine. AI, no matter how impressive, how much we tinker with it, is downstream from humanity. It is trained on our data, our speech, our culture. It's a second order reality. It's a shadow. And that has consequences for how we think about work. Christian tradition has never said that work is only about wages. Wages matter, of course, and justice demands that they are fair, but work is also a vocation. It's a way of participating in God's ongoing creative act. It means it's a way of shaping the world, and therefore a means of shaping our souls. And through work we learn patience, cooperation, sacrifice, skill. We learn to serve one another. We create beauty. We earn our rest. And the church has been very clear that work can be unjust. It can be cruel and degrading. Slavery is work. Exploited migrant labour is work. Child sewing footballs in a sweatshop are working, but they're not being treated with dignity. And The answer to that is not to abolish work as such, it's to transform work so that it's safe, fairly rewarded, humane, compatible with family, worship and rest. Liberation from drudgery is good. Liberation from all responsibility is something else entirely. If AI and robotics can remove the most dangerous, exhausting and repetitive aspects of labour, then Christians should be grateful. That really can be a gift. But if the same technology tempts us to abandon the idea of vocation, to imagine the highest ideal is to sit back while machines quietly run the world, then we're not entering a new Eden, we're simply withdrawing from our calling. And at this point, Plato steps into the picture, I think. His image of the cave, and I made a video about this 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that image is very modern. In the cave, the prisoner sits chained, watching shadows on the wall. They take these flat, flickering images for reality because it's all they've ever known. Genuine reality is outside the cave, in the sunlight. It's brighter, messier, more painful, more beautiful. And we should recognise that when one prisoner is pulled out, the light hurts. He has to learn to look at real things rather than this fantasy shadow world. AI is extraordinarily good at producing shadows. It gives us neat summaries of the world, it filters our preferences, it can generate images of smiling humanoid helpers, perfect social feeds, synthetic friends and lovers, tidy models of the economy, tidy solutions to complicated arguments. Everything is smooth, curated, made comfortable. The danger Plato points to is very simple. We may start to prefer the shadows to the truth, not because we're stupid, but because the shadows are tidy and controllable and real people, and real creation is not. Why wrestle with an awkward colleague when a digital assistant never answers back? Why learn how to walk when you can struggle with a gold-plated crutch? Why struggle with the demands of a real friendship or marriage when a simulation will mirror your mood, meet your needs, and never ask you to change? Why enter the rough world of politics if an AI will give you a perfectly tailored explanation that flatters your preferences and your prejudices and spares you the frustration of any disagreement? Plato would say you are falling back in love with the wall. You're choosing managed delusion over liberating but painful reality. Musk's idea that criminals might be followed around by Optimus robots instead of being imprisoned is a strong example of exactly how this can work. On the surface it sounds humane. No cells, no bars, just a mechanically enforced conscience walking 2 paces behind you like Prince Philip. But look more closely. Instead of giving a person a probation officer who is a fellow human being with judgment, compassion and limits, you give them a machine that never sleeps, never forgets and reports every deviation. You've not solved the problem of justice. You've created a society in which being watched is more common than being accompanied. And there's a deeper question beneath all of this. Suppose for the sake of argument that the technology works as advertised and that by some miracle the political will for redistribution appears. Robots do almost all necessary physical labour. AI manages logistics, health, allocation, transport, even much of the routine legal and administrative work. Money genuinely loses much of its function. So what then? For both a Christian and a classical perspective, the crucial issue doesn't disappear. It intensifies. What is freedom for? If work in the narrow sense becomes optional, we still must decide how we care for children and elderly, how we treat refugees, how we use and heal the earth, how we educate the young, how we handle crime, punishment and forgiveness, how we worship. None of those can be outsourced to silicon without losing something essential. Machines can help, but they cannot carry the moral weight. Machines simply imitate what we already do. They are derivative. The highest forms of work are not optional in any humanly meaningful society. The work of loving, of reconciling, of thinking, of creating art, of prayer, of contemplation, of stewardship of the land and sea. These are not hobbies. They are the core of what a civilization is. Art. They may not be attached to salaries in the way that industrial labour has been, but they will still demand effort, discipline and sacrifice. There's also the very uncomfortable ecological dimension. AI doesn't float in the ether. It has a footprint. Data burns Data centers, they burn electricity. Robots are built from mined materials, shipped on real ships, manufactured in real factories. A civilization that imagines it has escaped work while quietly offloading the costs onto the atmosphere, the oceans, and the global poor has not become more human. It's simply found a way to hide its exploitation behind code. True rest is not the idleness of a species anaesthetised by scenes and screens while machines toil in the background. True rest is what happens when work is just, shared, and limited so that human beings can pray, feast, play, and contemplate. Sabbath is not an eternal weekend funded by robots. It is the rhythm of labour and rest ordered by the divine. So, will work be optional in the future? Some tasks will be. Many jobs will change. Some will disappear entirely. That has always been true in times of technological change, though the speed and scale are now unprecedented. But in the deeper sense, the answer is no. The work that really matters will never be optional. We will always be summoned away from comforting shadows into the harder light of truth. We will always have to answer the question, what are we for, if not for love, justice, and praise? And by all means, let's welcome the robots that remove danger and drudgery. Let's use AI as a tool, but let's control it. We shouldn't surrender our vocation. We should listen to the Pope when he reminds us that AI is an imitation and humanity is the original. And we should listen to Plato when he warns us not to fall in love with the tidy illusions on the wall. The real risk is not that machines will take all our work. The real risk is that we will hand over our meaning.